The Chinese are already sick of us on Rednote, the app that Westerners fled to during the traumatic 15-millisecond TikTok ban that rocked the world last week.
Okay, time's up.
But is all hope lost, or are we entering a new era of international friendship? All we know is the memes are spectacular. Oh, actually, sorry, they're...
我不能说中文.
We have all the lowdown on this Scroll Deep with me, Benedict Townsend, the show that keeps up with internet nonsense so you don't have to. So on the 19th of January, as I'm sure you know, TikTok was banned for less than 2 hours as part of the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, or PFACA, bless you, which we spoke about in our TikTok ban video last week. You can check that out. But before that, about a week before that ban actually happened, people had already started moving to Xiaohongshu, also known as Rednote, which is a literal Chinese app run by the actual Chinese government. It's known in the West as Rednote, although the name literally translates as Little Red Book, a direct reference to quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong, meaning, in other words, this app is the app that American lawmakers think TikTok is. The Little Red Book is a book of quotations from Chairman Mao that is like a very important book in China. Yeah, it's like quotes from different interviews and different things. It's just things he said over the years. It's like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or indeed 50 Shades Darker. But enough people fled to Rednote in anticipation of the ban to make it the #1 app on the App Store, which is no small feat. And they refer to themselves as TikTok refugees. TikTok refugees as a phrase started trending on Rednote, and everyone tried to start using this app. Now, it was difficult because at first the entire app was in Mandarin. There was a translate function, but it didn't really work, so everyone was trying to kind of pass their way through, and obviously not everyone is as fluent as me, but at the end of the day...
这就是网球.
Now, of course, people weren't doing this just to have a new app to go to. It was also an act of defiance. You know, people were saying, okay, the US government hates China so much, they want to ban TikTok, they want to do all this stuff. We're just going to go to an actual app controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. You know, it was a big middle finger to American lawmakers, and I think it freaked out a lot of them. Also, a quick reminder that TikTok doesn't really exist in China. They have their own app called Douyin, but it's, you know, the idea that TikTok is some incredibly Chinese app, like they don't have TikTok. You know, it reminds me of a saying, quote, "In the West, imperialism is still oppressing the people at home. This situation must change," and that's from the Little Red Book. So what happened on Rednote during this infamous TikTok ban? Well, there was some good and some bad.
There's only 2 gender out here.
Mostly there was a lot of interaction between, you know, Chinese citizens, American citizens, probably the first kind of wholesale interaction of this kind ever. You know, the two internets are relatively cloistered, I guess, because of the huge language barriers and cultural barriers. It's quite interesting to watch regular people from these countries interact. I would say, generally speaking, from the Chinese side, there was a fair amount of, damn, you live like this, about the Americans. They were saying stuff like, oh, you know, our Chinese government feeds us all this propaganda that Americans don't have universal health care and that Americans have bad education and all this stuff. And then the Americans were just like, yeah, propaganda. Sounds pretty crazy. The Americans, for their side, they were kind of like Lenny on The Simpsons when he's like, please don't tell anyone how I live. You know, in a way, it reminds me of a quote. If the US monopoly capitalist groups persist in pushing their policies of aggression and war, the day is bound to come when the people of the whole world will hang them. And that's, of course, from the Little Red Book. But that's not all Americans experience on the app. There was also a fair amount of actual censorship. I feel like people go on and on and on about social media censorship, and it usually just means they didn't get enough views on their video. But there are genuinely topics you cannot talk about on Rednote. You cannot give too many opinions about Taiwan or Tiananmen Square or any of that classic stuff. And also a lot of stuff to do with LGBT people, rights, any of those topics are very heavily censored. Americans have also faced some homophobia and transphobia directly from Chinese users on the app. Homophobia and transphobia are a very big thing in China, unfortunately. Unlike in the US and the UK, where we've really got that locked down. When I think of the UK, I think of a place that is wonderful to trans people, and that's, we're killing it. But, you know, putting aside the outliers and the sort of more extreme opinions, it seemed like there was just a lot of wholesome interaction going on. You know, there was a lot of people doing the most universal thing of all, sharing videos and pictures of cats. Although apparently a lot of Chinese users were posting the phrase, like, suck because that's the direct translation of what they're saying in Chinese, which is that they basically want to kiss the cats, but they're just kind of directly Google translating it to suck Can I say this? We might have to beep this. And of course, the memes have been plentiful. People have been sharing their experiences on X, the Everything app, and other places, kind of leaning into the cultural differences, or just, the pleasant surprise of how well people are getting along. It's kind of sad in a way that people are like, wait a minute, Chinese people are human? But that's the power of propaganda. It's like, yeah, we're all just people, man.
We're actually learning that a lot of the crap that they've been talking about China is absolutely not true.
I'm moving to China because what the fuck, America?
Chinese people were so beautiful and so welcoming. I've been so brainwashed about China by my own government.
But at the end of the day, it reminds me of a quote. If he gives me any trouble, I can always use reason and persuasion. And that's from Shrek the Third. But now that the dust is cleared and TikTok has returned, at least for, I believe, 90 days or, a couple of months until there's some sort of decision from Trump, but I really do think it's not going to get banned. Now that the dust is cleared, will the TikTok refugees, as they call themselves, will they stay on Rednote? Well, since the pause in the ban, it does seem like a lot of people have just jumped back to TikTok. Rednote has dropped down the app charts. But a lot of Chinese users are saying, hey, please stick around. We've enjoyed this interaction. In fact, let's turn now to Chinese Trump for comment.
Let me tell you something. The Chinese folks on Little Red Book, they're so friendly. They love to share. You know what you should do? You should stay on Little Red Book. That'll give you a chance to explore the tremendous things that China has to offer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also, one of my favorite running gags on Scroll Deep is that I always refer to America as these United States. And so quite a lot of people seem to think we filmed this in America. What part of me screams America? But okay. I did download Rednote myself. Like a lot of people, I immediately ran into the wall of, at the time, it all being in Mandarin. And of course, I've got that problem where I can speak and understand Mandarin, but I never really learned to read it. We've all been there. It's what we refer to in China as a... So I haven't really pursued it. I guess follow me on Rednote if you want. It's not exactly going to be content central. But the main thing you want to do is follow Scroll Deep on Instagram, because that's just a good thing to do. Here's my question. Did you try Rednote? Are you still on Rednote? What was your experience of the app? Have you left? Have you bounced back? Have you stayed on? I'm actually genuinely very interested. For once, I'm genuinely interested in what you stupid people have to say. No, I am interested, and let me know in the comments down below. And now it's time for the secret question to reward people who've made it all the way to the end, to reward your good attention span. And Crabble Roan seems to be having a lovely little rat party, so I won't disturb Crabble Roan. The secret question is thus: which of the many wise teachings from the Little Red Book would you pick as your high school yearbook quote? And feel free to do it in the original Mandarin or indeed Italian. That brings us to the end of the show. Make sure to follow if you haven't already, and make sure to like the episode. It really supports us. And to sum everything up succinctly, I think I would have to say
再见一会儿见再会再联系回头见失陪一下我先告辞了告辞后会有期保重下次见保持联系回头见一会儿见但现在我只是在浪费时间拜拜